Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Maindeck podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dan Green, and today I'm joined by one of my regular co-hosts, Mike Piper.
How's it going, everyone?
Mike, this is going to be a very fun episode. We are doing episode 30 today, which is a nice number. Yep, we made it 30 episodes in so far. And I had this idea because, Mike, the main topic of this podcast today was inspired by you, actually. You came back recently from the Dragon Ball Battle Hour, Dragon Ball Super Worlds, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I was just I'm inspired by you sometimes because not to bury the lead too much, but you did not win or make it into Worlds even. You didn't get the last chance qualifier, unfortunately, despite your best efforts.
Yep.
But you came back here talking about how much money you made. I'm sitting here thinking I can't afford to go to Vegas all the time, and I'm like, Mike, what's your secret?
Yeah.
So the topic, I'll let you talk about it just a second here, but the topic of the conversation is making money at events.
Yeah. And you don't have to top cut either. I want to make that very clear. A lot of people were probably looking at this and they're like, well, how are you making money at it? It's all about looking like, we'll get into way more details, but you don't have to top cut. That's the greatest part. You don't have to top cut. It's all about the pricing and everything else. So.
Yeah, Mike's got his money-making secrets for you all today. So I'm excited. I need to hear some of these too, because I don't know how to not spend all my money going to events. And so it'll be, I'm really excited to hear that portion of the conversation coming just a little bit later. Of course, as usual in the Maindeck podcast, we're going to begin by just chatting a little bit of banter about what we've been playing lately. So, Mike, other than making your bank at Dragon Ball Battle Hour, what have you been up to?
Well, I did just play the Grand Archive. That was really cool. Kind of like our first, I don't know, you want to call it locals or we just call it locals. And
yeah.
I'm always playing different card games, Digimon, Dragon Ball Super, getting into Battle Spirits, which, for those of you that seen the 1,000 subscriber video, I would just like to defend myself and just say I was very tired. It was a long day at work. And now I have my coffee, so we're good. So got my energy.
It's not called Dragon Spirit Saga,
but it should be. I'll defend it there. It should. There's a lot of dragons.
There are a lot of dragons in it, and I get where you're coming from because you had just kind of combined Dragon Ball Super and Battle Spirit Saga, both games made by Bandai.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think you were just talking about Dragon Ball Super when you then said like Dragon Spirit Saga. So
yeah,
simple slip of the tongue, but I couldn't help but poke fun at you for that. Also.
Yep, I fused them. But no, played Grand Archive, which is really good. Like really, really fun card game. Again, we're, not trying to, get everyone advertising all that good stuff, but I just playing it in Winrai. I am on Winrai. I will tell you now, for those of you that are watching at Grand Arc, I am on Winrai. I just love the speed of it. I love just I don't know, we kind of got some banner back and forth if I should run,
Dungeon Guide.
Yeah, Dungeon Guide.
You were trying to cut Dungeon Guide. I don't get it.
No, when you have Breach the Winds, or when you have that
Beseech
card,
the Wind, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, which by the way, I did get my copies. I did buy my 3.
Good for you.
Yeah, I did buy my 3. I did right away. I was like, okay, I need my 4. So I do run 4 in the deck, but it's just really fun to play, really high tempo. And there's a lot of like cards you can search for, but yeah, I had a lot of fun playing that, and then did some Digimon this weekend.
So this weekend there was an interesting Digimon event that Bandai was pushing, right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, they did. For this one, they were doing like the all purple. They actually just released. Funny enough, they actually just released an announcement before this podcast. You might not have seen it yet.
I haven't.
Okay. They did just release an announcement where now I guess they're going to be moving forward with Mulligans, and it's going to be like full time. They just did like a podcast. Wow. Yeah, so Mulligan's are going to be full, but it's actually going to be different. I guess supposedly, this is the talk, where it's just going to be like Dragon Ball Super. You draw your 5, except you don't choose the cards out of your hand, but you do actually shuffle your deck now. Before it was you took your 5 and then you put your 5 at the bottom and then you can draw a new 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can actually shuffle your deck to draw a new 5, which is I'm very excited about. And then they released a new, I guess there's like a new mechanic called like Burst Evolution and Counter. So they're actually introducing Counter.
Okay, so as someone who just is not super into Digimon, I haven't really kept up with it since kind of the initial release, where I just kind of I don't actually know if I've even played a game. I've just like watched it played a little bit.
Sure.
So is there not instant speed like interaction on your opponent's turn in Digimon?
No, and there really wasn't, because of the way the resource system works. So like, how with the memory, and then if your memory goes below 0, then it's your opponent's turn. So it was really hard to kind of, I mean, yeah, you could activate like your Digimon's blockers and stuff like that, but there really wasn't like a response system. Well, now they're introducing like cards that have counter effects, where when your opponent's Digimon attacks, you can then activate that counter on that Digimon either for free, or from what I'm seeing, it's like, it looks like you can discard cards from your hand.
Okay.
And obviously, it wouldn't be pay for memory because you have no memory. Otherwise, it wouldn't be your opponent's turn.
Yeah, so for people who are unfamiliar with Digimon, it's a very interesting basic resource system in the game that was built off of. So Bandai had first released a box set game called Chrono Clash System, where they had started with Naruto, and then they added like Godzilla and stuff. It was supposed to be like it's like a cross IP thing, but it was just buy a single box. Like an LCG style gameplay instead of booster boxes. And you couldn't mix the IPs together. So you could like play Naruto versus Godzilla, but you couldn't put like Naruto riding Godzilla in one deck or something. Yeah. So in that game, they introduced this mechanic, and then when they remade Digimon, they just kind of like iterated and refined it a little bit. But the idea is that there's this tracker in the middle. It's basically like a shared tracker between both players that starts at a certain number. I think it was different in the games. And when you would play something, it would cost some amount of that resource. And eventually, if you played enough things, it would start at like 10 or something. And when it would go past 0, it would go to like the negative numbers, which would be your opponent's resources.
Yeah.
So you could like dump like a ton of stuff into play. And as soon as it went below 0, then it became your opponent's turn. And then they could do the same thing, and you just kind of go back and forth, sliding that scale.
And it's it's a real interesting system.
Yeah, very innovative.
System. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it definitely, and that was the biggest challenge was, okay, well, how do you introduce, how do I respond to your effects, like on your turn? Like what, because of that resource system, it's not like you can just, oh, hey, I'm going to pay for that. Well, you can't, but I really like how they're introducing the way they're introducing counters, because they're on the Digimon itself. So it's not like a card in your hand, but it's on the Digimon itself.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask about, if they were just like hand trap things, like in Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like, surprise, here's a free thing from my hand that just stops what you're doing.
They could go that direction. I mean, again, this was just an announcement that was just made.
Sure,
but. Yeah, that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest challenge that I was like, okay, how are you going to implement this? Because like in Dragon Ball Super, obviously you can keep energy. You have energy open, easy to counter. Same thing with like, magic, stuff like that. But when you're using a system where, the slider, okay, well, how am I paying for these costs if I have nothing to use anyway because it's my opponent's turn? And I think discarding cards from your hand, I think that's a really good idea, or just putting them on the Digimon itself. So I like it. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, there was that announcement today. They did it in the I forget what stream they were doing it on, but yeah, it's official by Bandai. So super stoked for that.
So actually, I want to back up a sec too, because I think slight misspeak here, that in that Digimon does have stuff you do on your opponent's turn, right? It's just on it's security, right? When they've got like when you take damage you can sometimes get a trigger. Is that right?
Oh yeah. So like when they do like security, yeah. So that you can. I
So there
mean,
was some sort of interaction, but it
there
wasn't
is
like
some
this.
interaction.
It
Yeah.
wasn't this like counter a specific type of play that's happening or something.
Correct. Like, there's no way, like, when they attack, like, I have to take damage. Like, the only real response is, like, blocking. But
Yeah.
besides that, there's not, like, a counter, like, a card that goes in response to your effect, you know, that
Yeah.
type of system. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how pretty much every Bandai game has, well, I think Dragon Ball Super started this way, but then added more stuff eventually. A lot of Bandai games at least really like to rein in the amount of sort of instant speed interaction with your opponent's stuff to a pretty good degree. Like Battle Spirit Saga, I really like the way they do it, where there are two very specific flash steps. They're the only time when you can just from your hand play something on your opponent's turn, and they're just before blockers and after blockers during combat, and that's it. But then otherwise, they have that one burst zone where if you have a card face down there, then you can respond to a very specific trigger with whatever that card says
Yeah.
on the burst, and that's it. And it is nice for, I think, for just like the general pace of gameplay being able to be just a bit snappier when there isn't always like, okay, I'm going to do this, do you have a response? Okay, I'm going to do this, do you have a response? I'm going to do this thing, do you have a response? Because that can start to overload. I think that's one thing that Yu-Gi-Oh has seen over the years too, is just that with it's especially egregious because, like you were saying earlier, in like Magic and Dragon Ball Super and stuff, if you have energy up, then you can respond to things, or lands and Magic or whatever.
If you don't have energy,
well, yeah. But in like, I think Magic's the better example of that. Is like if my opponent's tapped out, and there's nothing on board that has like is representing a free effect of some kind or something, then I can pretty much just kind of go to town, and there isn't a ton they can do. Whereas like in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like I have all these cards in my hand that have like 3 different triggers that I just pitch, and then something happens. So no matter what's happening, you always have to be like, does it resolve? Does it resolve? Does it resolve?
Super never. So in the early days of Dragon Ball Super, like the earlier sets, there wasn't a lot of counterplay.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of the interaction where it's like, okay, do you have a response? Do you have a response? But the player base wanted that. Like that was something they made extremely vocal to Bandai. They wanted more of that. Okay, I want to be able to respond to my opponent's effects. Like when they're doing something, I want to be able to have some type of response. And that's when Bandai started creating more of those counterplay cards, and then they actually banned minus Killy Zone.
Yeah, I remember that.
That really old school card, just because they wanted more of the, they wanted more of that interaction. So
that was, I think I was even playing a little bit during that time. Yes, I remember when that got banned.
Yeah. That was back in the day of Shenron, Victory Strike, triple attack. Like when I played with the Dragon Balls and that was so fun.
Yeah, are those wish decks still playable at all?
Yes and no. I think they're definitely a surprise deck. Like if you sit down with one, like there's someone, I have no idea what you're trying to do or what you're trying to accomplish. I think you don't
rogue
see
factor.
it in big road deck. I mean, you don't see it in main tournaments. Like you don't. Now you see, like you'll see some people that'll say like Sin Shenron is kind of a wish deck. No, I don't count that as a wish deck. That is obviously top tier in the format right now. But when we're talking like you and I, like Shenron, Super Shenron, even the like the blue Goku or the blue Dende going into Goku, Shenron card, you just don't see that widespread anymore.
Yeah, I think they should bring that back. I thought that was really unique. It was a neat, different way of awakening.
Well, they did in Worlds for the top 8. The top 8 they got an extra card, a special Dragon Ball. So used for those wish decks. So who knows? I mean,
maybe they're teasing something to come.
Yep,
that'd be cool. Yeah, that Mike, an interesting thing to think about too. And so I know that you've been you got invited to beta test the digital client. Now we're not going to break any NDAs. We're not going to talk about your experience there, but That does mean that you were playing in a weird format, because that beta client only had it was like a lot of set 1 and 2 cards, then a smattering of random cards
Yeah.
later on. So you just played a bunch of games in an old Dragon Ball Super format, and like a lot of card games, this was a format that was slower, kind of more reined in, kind of more basic on the abilities. And then over time, Dragon Ball Super, just like every other card game, just kind of got more and more stuff added onto it, became faster, had more interaction, more the addition of floodgates, as they call them in the game, and everything. So for your 2 cents, Mike, what format do you prefer? The older stuff in Super or the more current version?
I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. I think it's basically you're playing a different game. Well, I don't want to even say a different game, but it's just like a different format. And it was, to be honest, it was refreshing. It was really nice. I mean, just to be able to play just like the set 1, set 2 format. I could eventually, again, I want to make it very clear because there's going to be some people that are going to listen to this and like, you want rotation? No, I don't want rotation, but I do enjoy having the different block formats just for different style of gameplay. And it was just really cool to be able to play the set 1, set 2 format. Zamasu, I got to play my Zamasu, so I was happy that was included. I'm like, oh,
That's
right.
awesome.
My set 2 Zamasu, nonetheless, which kind of brought back some memories. I'm like, man, kind of want to redo my set 2 Zamasu deck now. And I'm sitting there like, all right, let's see, because it's just really good. So I do like, I kind of wish I like the block formats, especially when you have a game that's, I think, they're on set 22. And that, and keep in mind, set 22, but then they got all these other subsets and, all this other stuff that came out. So, I mean, you're looking, there's got to be, how many Dragon Ball Super? There's got to be 10,000. Or maybe not 10,000, but like 5,000. There's got to be up there.
Yeah.
Cards. It's just, there's so many cards to choose from. So I'd really like to see, I do like those block format. Again, don't make it the main format, but definitely going to help new people get into the game. Super easy. But yeah, I know there's tons of Dragon Ball Super cards.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see when the digital client hits what's actually included in it. Because I mean, it's great to have everything working. Obviously, it took a lot of work just to get the game to flow in there and everything. And from what I saw in the streams, it was a very sharp looking digital client too. That had a lot of nice little bells and whistles to it. But once that's only like half the battle, right? Because once you get the game working now, every single TCG is built on the idea that there's a basic rule set, and then the cards break the rules of the game. If your basic rule set says something deals 1 damage when it hits the opponent, well then set 1 you already have double breaker, it does 2 damage. You have critical, the damage goes to their discard pile instead of their hand. You're already breaking the rules with every single card, and then as the game gets older and older, the cards break the rules more and more and bend things and do crazy stuff. And I actually just read a really fascinating article on Magic's website about how so in Magic World, in Arena, their digital client, they released Arena. If you're not familiar with Arena, it's Magic the Gathering online. It's a great client just to be able to play that. They launched it with the set Ixalan years ago, and it's been keeping up with current sets. So they basically launched it with Ixalan, and that was what was in it. You could just play with that stuff, and then so it was kind of in a beta-ish period for a little bit until a few more sets release, and then they kind of have a standard rotation. And okay, now official standard is in Arena, and now it's it's just been going from there. But then over time, they've been slowly, as the developers find time, going back in time, pre-Ixalan, releasing the older sets. So they released Amonkhet Remastered, they released Kaladesh Remastered, and they're going back in the sets prior to Ixalan, and they just released a set called Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, which covers Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon, and they kind of hit not every single card, because you don't need some of these random draft chaff commons, uncommons, or whatever. They release the things that are, because Magic's a game like that. They release the things that are important. And as they were releasing the set, so if you're a Magic player, you're familiar with the like headlining card of the set, which was Emrakul the Promised End, who's a the second version of the Big Eldrazi, who was the main kind of antagonist for Magic for a while. And this is a card where this is an article was about how when they first were planning to do the set, they said, we can't do that card. We can do everything except the most iconic card from that set, because that card alone would take more work than it's taken them to implement like every single other remastered card they've done yet, combined, basically. And because Emrakul the Promised End is a card that when you cast it, you take your opponent's next turn for them. So and like in paper form, you don't even think about it. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so let me see your hand. Like, okay, you're going to cast this next, and then, whatever. And you just kind of do it. In digital form, it's like, okay, so now what does the player have access to see that they didn't get to see before? And then how do we design it so that every time they do something, priority is passed appropriately to that player instead of the opponent, because you get to make all your opponent's decisions the whole time. And it creates this like whole gigantic mess of things. And then like that's let alone, interactions with other cards and things. And ultimately what happened was, there were a bunch of developers who, said, like the guy leading it just said, look, we can't do it. I'm not going to like crunch you guys into oblivion. We're just going to release everything else. But they also keep this sort of like extra flex time for developers to work on pet projects, updating things, that kind of stuff. Keep everyone happy. And a number of developers just kind of put their heads together and said, let's try and make Emrakul work in our flex time, basically. And they pushed through and they got a bunch of stuff. And finally they showed it to the lead, and they're like, hey, look, there's a lot to do still, but it works. Like you can cast it in the client and it doesn't crash. And they eventually decided, all right, well, let's do this thing. And Shadows over Innistrad Remastered launched just last week with Emrakul the Promised End intact. So it's an interesting story because it just brings up that, like, I bet, if you're looking at Dragon Ball Super and being like, well, why don't they just have all the cards or whatever? It's like, it's probably a lot more complicated than you think.
There's a lot of interaction. Oh, there's so many cards I can think of, like even Tragedy Overground. Like, I mean, just being able to say, okay, nope, can't play this, goes automatically in your energy. Like, the question is, in the client, do you stop them from even doing it, or do you let them perform the action and then it goes directly to their energy? Like, there's a lot of triggers that you have to figure out how that's going to work. So, and
you have to think about like how counterplay windows will work with every different thing that happens too, because like there are going to be, like you said, they've added more and more of these little interaction pieces throughout the game, and you have to make sure if you put something in the game, everything can be responded to at the appropriate timing. And like, let's be honest, Dragon Ball Super has had its fair share of situations that we've talked about on this very podcast where the game's cards just didn't even work the way they thought they did.
Yep.
So
exactly. Oh, there was a few of those cards where all of a sudden the player base is, wait, oh, what? Oh, it works this way? Yeah, you're right. If you read it verbatim, per word, it technically, I'm trying to remember the card. It was
Dark Dragon Slaying Bullet.
Yep, that one. And it was like, yeah. So they don't, like, if they don't have a unison, then this is a stop. Like, oh, I remember that. And that had to get cleared up real quick.
And you have to get unisons implemented. That's another thing too.
Oh, yeah.
Work differently. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't think anything, I mean, I'd be impressed if anything was quite as complicated as Emrakul was. I don't think you have any take your opponent's turns effects.
Closest we have is they skip a turn.
Yeah, and that's that part. That kind of stuff's easy to code comparatively, right? It's just like, well, okay, turn passes to me again. So boom. But you're starting to get there. You got the new Android 21 that's like you can tap your opponent's energy for things.
I know. Kevin's quite excited about that one. Oh yeah, Android 21. Yep.
So yeah, it'll be. I'm really fascinated to see when they actually do the launch, like where they what kind of stuff they include, where they start the game. If they're going to try to start going forward, kind of like Arena did. Um, if it's going to be a smattering of just random stuff throughout all, that's probably what I'd guess. If I had to guess, it'd be more like Master Duel, where it's just like it's not even like set by set. It's just here's the cards we included, and they're from like all over the place. And then more will just be added over time. That's what I would guess it would be like, because I really don't think it's going to be like. I mean, like it could be that they just start at sets 1 and 2, and then just go like set 3's coming soon or something. But I don't know. I feel like that would be missing. I feel like that would be a decision we'd be criticizing here if that's what they announced eventually, because it's sort of like missing the point of like getting people excited to play digital client, because then it's like, well, you can play kind of a different game than what Dragon Ball Super is currently digitally. So it'd be weird.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious to see all that. But Mike, I want to say, just like you, I have actually, no, not like you. I haven't even been playing Grand Archive lately. I've been sorting Grand Archive cards.
Oh, I know. Oh. By the way, we'll put the plug in to go see his stream where he he opens his what was it? 3 cases?
3 cases ended up. I wasn't sure how many to open. I ended up opening everything. Yeah, it was a really fun opening. We had a great crowd just chilling with me the whole time. I couldn't be more grateful for just all the company while I was opening everything. It was a very fun time. We got to talk about a lot of really interesting stuff too. I think there's people asking me of my opinions on various, not even Grand Archive, just like TCG related things. And it was a fun conversation and fun box opening.
Speaking of, I totally forgot to pick up that Piper's Lullaby from you.
I was looking through my stuff as I was finishing last night, and I was like, "Oh, Mike forgot to grab these." So, I got it for you. Don't worry.
Good, gotta have that. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
a play set of that, even though I'm not quote unquote playing water.
Not yet. You aren't.
Not yet. You're right. Not yet. I don't know. I'm really digging Wind right now. I'm really digging Wind. I like
Wind's really
the way
fun.
it plays. Yeah, I like the way it plays.
Yeah, I'm having trouble, just like now that I have everything sorted, I'm ready to start building, but I keep going, okay, maybe I'll build Water Xander. Oh wait, Water Sylvie could be interesting. I kind of want to do Wind Xander, and I just kind of like, I'm jumping all over the place. So I have to like actually settle on a few things to build so we can start putting some content up.
All I've done is I think it's Loraindex is all I've faced, and they do that that weird thing when they get to level 3, and then they show. I think it's Lorraine. They show what's in their memory, and they go, "Oh, I have all these cards, so I get to heal this much and do this much damage to you."
No, you're playing Xander decks.
Is that Xander? Oh,
that's Xander. Yeah, he likes to reveal his memory and reveal Luxem cards to trigger effects.
Yeah, I will say one win card though, one win card, which is what sold me on Wind, and I only ran one, and biggest mistake ever. Like when I went, I'm like, no, I'm running 4 now. It's that
Veiling Breeze,
and that is so good. Just costs 1. I'm like, okay, I have 3 win cards in my memory. You do 3 less damage for the turn, and literally when I do that, my opponents literally just go, "God, pass." Like that's it. That's their turn. They're done. It
Time
just
walk.
ends their turn. It's just for the old Dragon Ball players. That is a time as a warrior's soul. You just play that and go, turn over. There you go. You're done. Or for the super players, it's a baby Hatchiak. You just play that and like you're done.
Baby Hatch.
You're done. My turn.
It really, actually, Baby Hatch is a really good, I think, comparison to it, because I mean, your opponent's free to do other things. They can, they can play more stuff. They can draw some more cards, doing all this stuff. But like, it does just say, if you were trying to do any amount of damage to me this turn, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not even, the great thing is it covers not just like direct damage from like allies. We're talking like the quote unquote indirect damage. Like, oh, hey, I'm showing these cards. You take X amount of damage, or I'm going to do some magic attack and it's going to do X amount of damage. Like it just says you're doing this much less damage, and sure they could still do damage over you, but it's a feel bad.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to get through with anything at that point.
Yeah, they don't even want to waste the resources on it. There's like fine, I'll do it next turn. It's your turn. And I'm like, well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Wind has really, I think, been performing pretty well too in sort of the early metas we've been looking at, and it's got a lot of tools. Like you said, it's very tempo oriented, mid range style thing. But what we've seen so far is, I think, fairly typical of how metagames develop in every single card game, because the very first dominant decks we saw were fire aggro decks, Fire Lorraine, fire, little bit of Fire Xander, I think mostly Fire Lorraine though, just jumping in, throwing big damage attacks, and the opponent just like can't keep up. And now we've seen the mid-range decks that have learned how to contend with that, which means they've learned to slot in Veiling Breeze and everything like that, and Deflecting Strike and that kind of stuff. And so now those decks just can, flip over the Fire Lorraine, like, no, you're not doing anything here. Yeah. And the next step is to see the control decks who learn how to outvalue the mid-range decks and turn the corner on them. So if I had to predict anything, it would be the rise of water coming after this. Because in Grand Archive, we have that really cool delineation of, like, it's not always exactly the case, but fire decks tend to be aggro, wind decks tend to be mid-range, water decks tend to be control. Yeah. So we'll see what decks crop up now that can just, take whatever Wind's doing and just kind of stop it and win through inevitability. I like that Water Xander personally, just because you don't have to fight for your win con. It's just revealing Lightweaver's assaults until you win. Because when you reveal your memory, every Lightweaver's assault, you deal 2 damage to something. So you can kind of build your whole deck around controlling the opponent and just wait till the late game start doing that. The problem is you basically can't beat the mirror match. The mirror match just goes forever because one Xander is just healing and the other one's doing damage, and then you vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's where Rye actually, that's where like Water Rye would maybe do the trick, because Water Rye doesn't care about that so much. He's not going to do incremental damage. He'll just go, okay, well, I'll triple Arcane Blast you to win.
One turn. Yep. That's all I need. Rye just needs one turn. Yep.
So Grand Archive has been a fascinating metagame to see. Another thing that I feel like is, as we've been exploring it more, I've been cringing more and more at some of my full card set review thoughts. There's a number of things that I think I'm wrong about. I think I was underselling Floating Memory. I think I was underselling some of these response cards like Veiling Breeze and stuff that really are more effective than I thought they were. So I'm really curious to see, I look back and see what I rated everything in the future, because I think it's gonna be very different.
Do like one of those retrospect videos and just be like, well, on paper it didn't look that good. However, when we started playing, it was really good. So
Yep. I think that there's gonna be a lot of those, but that's okay. It's point is that I just got my opinion out there. People can go ahead and take it for what it is. I recognize though that wasn't definitely
that happens all the time in card games. Even with card, everyone was just like, look at Dragon Ball Super with Crimson. Like, if you go back and you look when that card came out, everyone was like, well, yeah, it's basically a watered down Soul Striker. No, this ain't gonna see play, and then literally
banned.
The card gets banned because it's so good. So I mean, that happens in every card game. Like, you're gonna look at something on paper and doesn't look that good, but then you start play testing it and you're like, oh wow, this is really good. No big deal. I mean, you just do a retrospect video and you're just like, oh, okay, well, whoops.
Yeah, I might even just not do that though, and I think I'll just make sure the next time, like if I do it for set 2, I just say, by the way, these are my initial thoughts, they're probably wrong.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Was that?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's, I think that covers our banter for today. I think it's time we head right into the main topic, what people came for today, because I think people came here for Mike's financial advice. So, Mike, I want to talk about this because, as you know, I am not someone who top cuts events very often. I am, I play for fun. I play for theory. I play for social networking. I like to chill. I like to have fun and play the game with people. And enjoy the hobby in general. So I don't often, occasionally, but I don't often get to leave with a paycheck from a tournament. So I got to learn some tricks from you, Mike. Mike, how do you, as someone who also doesn't quite get there a good chunk of the time, How do you end up leaving with more money than you came in with on your events? And you just go through, talk about some of these events where you've done this and what your tips and tricks are for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, the big ones where a lot of people like, and this goes in any card game like Super or anything along that lines, are your online events. And I'll tell you right now, like in Super, like they have online regionals. They do them like at least once or twice a month, where I'll pay $30 for the entry fee. And the key thing is you just want to look at the participation prizes. And I mean, you're looking $30, and they're sending you like champion packs, and they're not doing it so much now. Like they don't send out mats, but earlier they used to send out play mats, which let me see if I can back up a little bit here. Right there, you see that? Those are all my play mats.
It works really well for the audio listeners, but yeah, for video you can see.
Yeah, those are my bad. I had to back up, but yeah, those are all my play mats. Like I literally have tons of play mats. You know, selling those. But really, what your online tournaments are almost always a plus, a positive. You're gonna make money. Just off the participation. Playing in these online tournaments. Like I've made. Just as an example, like I'll pay $30 to go into a tournament, turn around, sell my cards for over $100, cards alone. So one of the key things is watch out for those online tournaments. And there's some of them where you want the ones that are officially done by, Bandai or the corresponding company, because they're going to have a lot better participation prizes. And if you think about it from a financial perspective, well, a company, they're now not paying for the venue, right? So there's no venue they got to pay for. There's no, the overhead, and they just got to have like an online judge. So they're going to have better participation prizes. So my first big piece of advice, participate in online tournaments. Like pay the $30 and get into those.
I want to ask a question because I think one issue that people have with this is that when they play in those events, they want those cards, right? So I think we just have, it's really worth pointing out that there is a trade-off that has to be done here. So if you're looking to make bank and keep the cards that you get for participating in these things, I think that typically means you kind of have to top cut, right?
Not quite.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, especially when a lot of these, and again, this is for any card game. Like this ain't just Super. This is any card game. A lot of times when these cards initially come out, right? So for like the championship season or what have you, what you need to ask yourself is, do I need these cards right now? Do I need them right now? If you don't need them right now, like if this is like, okay, I want this part of my collection, I want this, sell them. Sell them. They're going to go down in value as more and more and more are released into the wild. They're almost always they're going to go down in value. So ask yourself, do I really need these cards right now? And if I don't, sell them. And that goes for the same with your locals, right? Like a lot of these card games, they give like local promos or whatever. When they first come out, you're going to get your players that are going to be like, okay, I need these cards, I need these cards, I need these cards. But as the players get what they need and more are released, then you're going to be able to pick up a lot cheaper, and then you're going to get the collector stuff. So that's the key thing you have to ask yourself when you go into these online tournaments. If you even if you don't need the cards, go into the online tournaments and turn around and flip and sell them. But if you do need these cards, ask yourself, be like, do I need them right now for my deck? Like, is it a key, crucial part of my deck? And if it isn't, sell them.
Hey, Mike.
And rebuy them later.
Stop hitting your desk.
Am I hitting my desk? Is it making a noise?
Yeah, you are.
No, I even put padding under it because I'm known for that.
You're tapping it. You're tapping it with something. Okay, hands off. Okay, but yeah, that's great. Sorry. Great advice. I mean, it's the basic advice, right? It's sell high, buy low. In this case, just flipped around. Flipped around from usual, because you are going to acquire these things. And the best thing you can do is get them early, get them on the market early, get them out of your hands, and then buy them later. I know a lot of people are going to be a little hesitant because I think a lot of times these events really work off of a fear of missing out on these certain cards, and people are afraid that they are going to go up in value over time, which does happen
Yeah.
sometimes. So, Mike, do you have any advice you use to gauge whether or not you think these cards are going to be ones you want to hold on to versus pitch right away, or is it
Yeah.
generally just you want to sell them most of the time?
Um, so it does depend on the meta and the game. So kind of ask yourself, it's like, okay, is this card considered a meta card? Or is this card like a rogue-ish type card? So it's really going to depend. Like there are cards that are really, like most of the time I'm selling them. Unless there's something that is like extremely groundbreaking, that it's like, okay, this, I feel like this is just going to continue going up in value. Um, like ask yourself if this promo is so good that they're going to have to turn around and reprint it eventually, just because everyone's going to have access to it. Again, it really depends upon your game, but I will tell you 90% of the time I'm selling these things. The minute I get them, I'm selling them unless I absolutely positively need them for my deck.
Yeah, and I think I can put a little anecdote into this where looking at a different game, not Dragon Ball Super, which I think we're going to be looking at a lot today, just because that's been sort of your domain. But so last year at Gen Con, there was the exclusive My Hero Academia Universes promos, and they were exclusive to Gen Con. They were actually very attractive promos, all in a gold foil using the fantasy artwork from, if you've watched the show, the ending of season 2, like the like end song and everything during the credits, had all of the characters dressed up like they were like D&D, like fantasy style characters and stuff. So they grabbed some of those shots and just did alternate art promo cards of some popular cards in the game, featuring the characters in their sort of their fantasy cosplay, basically, in a nice looking gold foil and everything. And those were largely participation promos. In fact, there's an All Might that was you just had to walk up to them and either show them that you played the game already or demo with them, and they gave you a copy of it. And otherwise, they were like, if you entered in the regional, you got the Uraraka meteor showers. If you entered in the provisional, you got that was the provisional. The regional was the Ida, whatever. There's a set of these. And when they first got in people's hands, you could go on like Facebook Marketplace. You could sell them immediately for like $50 a pop. Boom. Just like boom, boom. Sell them all. Just get them out of your hands. Make your money back right away. And then if you were to wait for about how long did it take? Maybe a month or so after Gen Con was probably where they started to hit lower. You could start to buy them up for $8-10 back if you wanted them, and just end up with a bunch of money. Now though, just recently, almost all of those have shot back up to about $30 a piece if you want to acquire them now. So there's an interesting arc that you can tend to follow with these things. And now, because I think if you think about it, obviously right away that just like the supply was the lowest and the hype was the highest. So that was the time to sell. And then the supply kind of reached its maximum right after Gen Con ended. Everyone got home. Everyone started trying to make a little money back or whatever and putting them on the market. So then the supply was the highest and the demand was kind of the lowest, just because a lot of people just had them and and they're like, okay, I want to use them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then over time that supply dwindles, right? And now we're reaching it's been about 9 months since then, and now the supply is very low on all of them on the marketplace, and the people who want them are willing to pay a bit more.
Yeah, and speaking of which, getting into Gen Con and conventions, you want me to get kind of into the next thing?
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
The biggest thing I will tell you as a card game player, go to Gen Con. Just go to Gen Con.
Now, Gen Con costs money to go to.
It does, but you're going to get your money back. You're right. It costs money to go to. It does.
If
And
you
I
know
will
what you're
give,
doing.
if you know what you're doing, which I'm gonna help all. I'm gonna kind of let you know some of the things to do. But yes, Gen Con does cost money to go to. But we as like we kind of help with the main deck. We split the hotel room. We go with a bunch of friends. We take our
Your RV.
we spend a little more to go in my RV, but we could ride in a clown car if we wanted to, but why, we want, but you can keep the cost down by going with friends and stuff. But the reason why Gen Con is such value added is not so much, sure, your card game, maybe the participation pricing isn't the best. What I love is at least the Bandai card games like Dragon Ball Super, Digimon, Battle Spirit, like they're probably going to be offering really really good. Like a lot of times they do like you were saying, like the custom artwork, the stamps. I know last year they did the books, but the other thing as well is Gen Con offers a lot of exclusive items that you can purchase. For example, the biggest one I'll say is the eBay booth.
Yeah.
Like I went to the eBay booth and got their eBay card, and that alone, I mean, just going to the booth, literally just going to the booth, got the eBay game, got the eBay card, got the bag. That alone, I sold for $200. Just going to the booth, literally.
Wait, what card? I don't remember what card. I just remember last year we got like, didn't we get just like either a random magic or a Pokemon pack or something?
Yeah.
Well, what did you?
Just a little random magic or Pokemon card, and then
how'd you sell that for 200?
Well, I sold that. Then we got like the game. Well, then you do know when you go to the booth, they had you could randomly get like a special edition one.
Oh, and you got that?
No, I didn't get the special edition one. And here's the other thing. Here's the other suggestion that I do too. A lot of people, like when they sell their cards, TCG Player is an awesome site. I love TCG Player. The biggest problem right now with TCG Player is it's only available in the United States. Okay. You're kind of limiting the market. But if you were to sell on eBay, okay, now eBay actually hits globally. And
it makes it easy. It makes it easier. It's way easier to do than it used to be on eBay too. You can ship right to someone in the US, and then if you're a US listener, and then they'll ship it out for you.
Exactly. So as a US, So what they do is they have the eBay, the global shipping now. So now literally, you just ship it to eBay, and then eBay will ship it to the seller. And what's great is I know a lot of you are like, well, yeah, but what happens if the seller doesn't get it? If eBay ships it out and the seller doesn't get it, you don't pay. eBay pays. I've actually had that happen to me twice, actually, that has happened. Where I've shipped it to eBay, they shipped it overseas, and then the overseas, they didn't get it, but then eBay refunded it. I still got the funds. Doesn't affect your rating or anything like that. So a lot of those cards, like if you're getting like the custom artworks and stuff like that, they don't have that. A lot of them, they don't have that available overseas. So I'll sell that on eBay, and that's how I can get more money for it compared to like if you sold on TCG Player, where only available within the U.S. So that's one way, like you can really get a lot of funds from Gen Con.
Take your hands and put them in your lap.
Did I do it again?
You keep doing it. Put your hands in your lap.
No!
Put your hands in your lap.
Okay, I'm gonna keep my hands in my pocket. Like, there's gonna be people in the video in the comments, and they're gonna sit there and go a time frame. They're like, Mike's tapping again. Mike's tapping again. Okay. Yeah.
we need to stop that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but that is great advice. Using eBay is definitely a great way to do it. I'm a fan of Facebook Marketplace. I mean, you do have to be careful, of course, when you're jumping on there. You have the potential of being ripped off in some way, but there's also a lot of very good, very reputable sellers. Always make sure you're checking for references. Ask for references. Have them send you something. And if a deal sounds too good to be true, it might be. So make sure you are doing your due diligence always. If you're going to be selling in just a peer-to-peer marketplace like that, if otherwise, eBay, there is a fee you're going to pay to eBay, but if you are selling things at the right time, you are going to make a lot more money. If I had just sold all my Gen Con promos right away and then bought them all a few months later, I would have made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars that I don't have now. So for My Hero, I should have done that. I should have taken Mike's advice at the time and done that. But you get so entranced by how shiny the cards are. And
you do.
You gotta learn to let go a little bit, I think. So yeah, there are certain places at Gen Con that you should definitely hit up. We recommend hitting the eBay booth right away because sometimes it depends. I think year to year. They just started the eBay booth a couple of years ago. It's kind of a new thing, but they are just giving out usually these swag bags where you're just going to get some stuff and get some value back. And you literally don't have to pay anything. You just walk up to them and take it, and then you leave. There are also, a number of card games who are giving out things for visiting them.
Demos.
Yep. We can't say right now who's doing what because every year it's a little different. But I can say that last year, like I said, Jasco was doing My Hero Academia demos where you got an All Might promo, which you even right now you could sell for $30 on that single card alone, and for just spending a little bit of your time learning a good game. There are always, in addition to that, Jasco ran multiple different events that were giving out high value in participation prizes. So I know even if you didn't really play the games very much, you could do a little circuit hitting a number of those My Hero events, and you could have probably sold everything there to pay for at least pay for your gas and con badge, if not a good chunk of your hotel, depending on how it is. And that gives you the whole rest of the con to do the things you actually want to do.
One Piece did the demo.
Yeah, One Piece demos. I know every year too, Bushy Road does, they just hand out promos for Weiss Schwartz. I don't think they're very valuable promos, but you can just kind of walk the con floor and get free stuff.
Yeah.
And if you know the right places, you can get some money out of it for sure.
Yep. Oh, for sure. There are a lot of and then also if you hit up a few of the booths at Gen Con, and again, and I say Gen Con, this is with any convention. Really, this is any convention. Do your research. There's a lot of con exclusive stuff, like the pop figures, as a matter of fact. Make sure you're doing some research on a lot of these pop figures. Now, you'll notice my pop figure Dragon Ball Super collection back here. There's other things where there's con exclusive of those where you can pick those up. Just pick up one, turn around, sell it on eBay. That can actually help pay for your con as well. Just a lot of little things that you can do. I will tell you every year that I go to Gen Con. Now there was one year that I made a lot, which Dan, you know about that.
Yeah, well, you sold your collection to someone there.
I didn't sell my whole collection. I sold a lot of my good. Yeah, that collection.
Your slabs and stuff.
Yeah, I remember I was contacting people in the group. I was like, listen, I've got over $10,000 in cash. I need someone to walk back to me with a hotel room. I don't care who. I just have someone with me. I wish they would have just PayPal'd me. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
I would have been like, can you PayPal? No, we have cash. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah. But no, the key thing is just do your research when you go to a convention. Find up the good booths to hit up. Make sure you're checking for con exclusives, promos, demos. Take a little time to do that. And I'll tell you right now, you will make money. I make money every year I go to Gen Con. There's never been a year I've went to Gen Con where I've lost money. It's always I've always got a game plan. I'm going in there. There you go. So that's my biggest advice when it comes to conventions. And
just don't be afraid to sell the things right away most of the time. I mean, I can't think of a single card game promo where it was like, oh, well, you should have just held on to those indefinitely because they only went up in value. It's almost always they start extremely high, they dip way down, and then sometimes they climb up later. You do have to be willing. You have to be willing to do a little bit of market research and sell these things right away. But that is how you can travel to more events. You can have more fun playing the card games you enjoy, and actually not take a hit on your wallet like that.
Yep,
Um,
and that kind of gets in. You kind of mentioned that. That kind of gets into my next one, where
yeah,
there are slight exceptions, but you can still make a lot of money depending upon when you need the money. And that's when I was going to get into Dragon Ball Super Battle Hour.
go for it.
Okay, so recently, in Las Vegas, there was Dragon Ball Super Battle Hour for 2023. Had an absolute blast. I don't know if it's going to be Patreon. I did do a video for it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it'll be on the Patreon.
it'll be on the Patreon. I did do a video over it for the Dragon Ball Super Battle Hour. Took tons of photos, videos. Absolutely incredible. Now, I knew before even going on that trip, and I already was talking to the Maindeck crew about it, and they can, they are like, really? I'm like, yeah, I guarantee you guys. I guarantee you. Just go. You're going to make your money.
I straight up
So,
didn't believe you.
yep.
I'm gonna be honest. I just didn't
Dan,
believe you.
I don't believe you. Yep. No, you're crazy. I'm like, I'm looking at these prizes. I am telling you right now, 100%, I am going to 100% make my money back. And oh, did I make my money? So how I knew this, so not before I signed up. I mean, so signing up was free, which was kind of weird with this tournament. But some of the signs that really, and I'm not pounding on the desk, I'm just putting up some of the signs that I knew, some of the signs that I knew that really like kind of boom is number one, only 1,000 people were allowed to spectate. There was a limit to how many people could be in the tournament. They mentioned prizing. So even before they kind of got into the prizing, you got to go, okay, this is a world tournament, free to enter. They're mentioning special prizing. There's gonna be people like they're gonna be giving out stuff throughout. This is a world tournament, so yeah. And Vegas, I mean, I don't know where a lot of you are located. I know even here in North Dakota, we actually have, small North Dakota, you bet, Fargo Airport. Allegiant Air actually flies directly out of there. And I was able to get round trip tickets to Las Vegas, and it ran me, I think it was like $500. And then I had some points, and $500, and that include my hotel room. So, really cheap. But I knew right away, I was like, okay, something special is going to happen here. Like they're going to sell something special, they're going to give out something special, something that I'm going to get my money back. Then they released the prizing, and I was paying attention to like the Dragon Ball Super group, like David kind of mentioned, he's like, man, you guys are going to like the prizing, you're going to like the prizing. Like I signed up. Then they released the pricing, and I knew right away. I was like, listen, if you can just go, pay for the tickets. I promise you, you're gonna make your money back. Everything they were giving away, and they gave away, to be clear, for participating, you got a shirt, a special shirt. You got what do you call it? The leader cards. They all had world stamp leader cards. They were all foiled, and then you got other stuff like a pen, a poster, and then just for spectating the next day, you actually got this 3-card pack for like Dragon Ball Super. They were promo cards, but literally the promo card, if you use it, it just says shake your opponent's hand.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It's more, yeah, it was more of one of those symbolic cards.
Yeah, it's just for fun.
But I knew the spectators, like they all got them. So the first thing that was thinking through my head was, I'm like, okay, these are going to be worth a lot. And as a matter of fact, on that Sunday, when people were coming in and they were getting their cards, you got to remember, not everyone was in the Dragon Ball Super card game. So, like, I would go up to people and say, "Hey, I'll give you $100 for your card back. I'll give you $100 for your card back, or I'll give you $50, whatever, to get there." Not the one for in the Dragon Ball Super game, because people knew who were there when they got their cards. They knew what they were going for. but we're talking about the people who were, we're talking about the people like who were just spectating, they were there for the Dragon Ball Battle Hour to watch either the fighting
Like,
or maybe they were
yeah, fighters or something. So.
fighters, yeah. And I was like, okay, hey, give me those card packs. And if you go on eBay, actually, I don't know if you're going to want to go on eBay. For those of you that were thinking about going, I don't think you're going to want to go on eBay to see what that participation prize stuff goes for, because some of you are probably going to start crying. Because I will tell you right now, I easily made almost $2,000, like just selling that stuff, just selling what I got. Fortunately, I couldn't get any more of the world leader cards, the world stamp leader cards, but yeah. Easily made my money back for that trip, and then some. So, and then I got like a free I didn't sell my T-shirt. No, I actually wore it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, man. I love the feeling of that. The white jersey, oh, that was great. We should make Maindeck ones of those. Make Maindeck ones.
I'll keep that in mind.
But yeah, just super like, I mean, so the key thing there is when you're going to a tournament, what you want to pay attention to is there going to be like special type pricing? And is there a limited amount of entries? Because that's like a tall tale sign that like what you're going to have, you're going to be able to sell or flip if you don't want it. Now, again, luckily I didn't need any of the leaders. None of them were Zamasu. There was a Zamasu leader. I would have kept that. Everything else would have gotten like, nope. But you got to ask yourself, okay, is there like a limited amount of people that can enter the tournament? Are they mentioning special pricing? That's really going to help you, like, hey, offset a lot of your expenses, if not all of them, or even make money when you're going to these tournaments.
Now, Mike, just to counterpoint some of our previous conversation here, these exclusive spectator promos. Now, those have been worth quite a bit more, and it's been about a month since the event. Are these? I mean, these sound different than what we were talking about previously with like the convention exclusive promos that start really high and then go down, or do you expect these to go down over time now?
The world champ leaders, I feel, are either going to stay the same or maybe even go up, because those are really super limited. Okay, so those were, and again, that's hard because you do got some people that say, hey, there is a hidden stock that Bandai has that they may give out at another event. I don't know. That one's tough. Tough to call. That one I could see either staying the same or actually going up in price. The spectator ones I feel like are going to go down pretty quick. And the reason why is they gave out, first off, you just had to spectate. So it wasn't just those that entered the Dragon Ball Super Tournament. It was those that entered or just spectated, just went to Dragon Ball Battle Hour. You had the 1,000 participants, which I don't know if there were 1,000 spectators. Sorry, 1,000 spectators. And then you had everyone who actually was in Dragon Ball Hour who was there, players. So you're looking at there's maybe about 1,500 of those out. I feel like those that spectated, once they figure out what they have, if they kept it and they know it's worth something, then it's going to go down. It was the same thing with the eBay cards, right? Like when they were giving out the eBay cards right away, okay, the eBay cards were high value right away. Like I knew right away the minute I got my eBay card, I was like, okay, I need to sell this at Gen Con. But then once people started figuring out, that they got the eBay card, they look on eBay, they see the value of it. Now everyone's going to try to start listing their cards, and then it's going to start going down. So I feel like the spectator cards, they're going to go down, and the world cards are either going to stay the same. They may even go up. So
how do you make that sort of decision when you're looking at these, whether you should dump something right away or hold on to it?
Again, and it comes down to, and I mean, a little background about myself. I do have a triple major. I am a marketing, economic, banking and finance major, so I know like a little bit of the economic stuff, like the up and down curves, and basically it's like looking at your card game and look, you all know, like for your each individual card game, like there's going to be that card, like for example in Dragon Ball Super, like who's extremely popular? Goku, Vegeta. So when you're looking at the god rares that are in the box, like the first god rare that comes out, right? Like that card, because it's gonna go up in value
because it's Vegeta.
Because it's Vegeta. But say when they did the next god rare and it was Bardock, well, Bardock, I mean, he there are Bardock fans, but not as popular as your main characters of Goku and Vegeta. So Bardock, I think I haven't checked the price on God Rare Bardock, but I believe it's kind of doing this.
A little bit of a dip
down. Yeah. So I mean, again, in your card game, you're gonna know like Pokemon is Charizard, Digimon, Wargrave, or Omnimon.
Any anime TCG that has women in it also has a waifu tax that apply. Like absolutely, like you said, Pokemon is Charizard. That's true. Also, it's any anime girl in Pokemon is where the value is at. My Hero Academia, it's any of the cards with girls on them. Uraraka, Toga's been a big one. Those are characters where you're going to be able to bank money. And then to some degree, I feel like All Might cards tend to also be a little more of a safe bet. But I think a lot of it too is looking at your game and determining, if am I selling these to collectors or excited, collector player hybrids. There's the people who, sometimes myself included, who like to play the game. The point is I'm playing the game, but when I play the game, I like to play it in style. I want to have the fancy looking cards. So that's sort of the like what I mean when I say like a collector player hybrid. And for those players, it's sometimes the cards I think that are more competitively playable cards that have a fancy new version or something.
Yeah.
Are things where you can I think very quickly unload those, but then over time those might not actually sustain because they're really being hyped up just on how playable they are at the end and at the moment in the meta, specifically.
That's like, for example, with the Worlds, like going over those participation cards, those cards have zero playability. They're zero, nothing. I mean, literally, I think if I remember right, that card costs 7 and it just says shake your opponent's hand.
Yep.
But so the key, it's just do your research. Like every game's going to be different. Do your research and then ask yourself and just be like, okay, is this going to be something where, is there a limited supply? If there's a limited supply of it, don't just sell on TCG Player. Open it up, sell on eBay, because then you're going to get people globally. And not everyone globally can attend the U.S. events, especially if it's only within the U.S. So just do your research on that, and then that's how you can make a lot of your money when you go to conventions, and a lot of time just for participating. We're talking not even top. Now, if you top cut, that's a different. You top cut, you better get like you. I think with Worlds, I think Marcus said, I have to follow up with Marcus, but I think he was selling his top cut Worlds Gohan card, Beast Gohan. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to get into details. Just go watch the movie. But I think he sold that for over 10 grand. I think he ended up getting for that.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if you top cut, if you ain't getting your money back, I would definitely probably talk to your card game. I'd be like, maybe we need to up the prices a little bit, but you don't, like, a lot of people just have this, if I don't top cut, I'm negging. And it's like, well, no, you just do your research, and there's ways that you can reduce the costs going on trips. Go with friends. Like I said, we go to Gen Con, keep it nice and cheap, and have a really good time. And just get exclusive cards, playing online events. Online events, you're just sitting at home, $30, just easy. They, Dragon Ball does it all the time. So
My Hero does it.
Yep. Yeah. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be attending those events. No reason. Get them, and yeah, those are cards you can easily flip right away on TCG Player. If it's towards the end of the season and you're getting, again, and this is, do your research. If you're towards the end of the season, they're giving you participation prizes, and it's quote unquote old stuff.
Yeah, it's the stuff they've been giving out at previous tournaments for a while
Yeah,
already.
exactly. So look at the prices.
Because that stuff is just not going to have the same value.
Exactly. Yeah. Go on TCG Player, look at the prizes, go, okay. You could create like a cost benefit type model where you go, okay, I've got a 1 out of, let's say there's 5 cards in the pack and like one of them is worth this much. You could add up, not getting too complicated, but you literally could add up the cost of every one of those cards, divide it by 5 to get your average.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could go, okay, am I going to be able to net, playing in this event or whatever? Shouldn't be the only reason you should play, but you could look to see and go, okay, am I going to get my money back? Or am I going to be net? Like, have that set expectation before you even go into the event.
And the last thing I want to mention too about this is that there's sort of a subtext we haven't been discussing in this, which is that all of this is sort of dependent on other players who don't know what's going on, buying your cards from you.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear that, just ethically speaking, if there's a willing buyer, then they're a willing buyer. But I think, and I think there's always, just in any part of TCG economics, from trading to buying and selling cards with people, your intention should always just be to get a fair, proper deal for both players. Have both people walk away pleased with their result. Now, as listeners of the podcast, we have to tell you that I want you guys to get good deals on things, because that's our goal here, is to provide you with good advice. So I recommend take the flip side of this advice if you're looking at buying and selling, or buying cards specifically, which is that if those new hot Gen Con promos just came out and you can't make it to the con or something, or you only got 3 and you want a 4th to play with or whatever. Well, if you only got 3, sell them, and then, wait a little bit and then buy 10 if you want to, when they're cheap. And if you can't make it to the con to do any of this, just some of these things, just as Mike said, do your research, think about the cards, think about where these are going to go. And then for a lot of cards, you'll want to just wait and then buy them a little later. For some things, if you wanted to buy those like world champ leaders or something, you might want to think about getting them right away. However, I also want to point out that, there's an aspect of this, which is a promo saturation that sometimes hits with things where, if, these world champ leaders are probably awesome. We don't know what they're going to print down the line. If maybe they print the leaders again and in a different promo form, and that's kind of the hot new thing, and that dips the other ones down. And maybe they fall out of favor in the meta eventually. Over time, less people are just looking for them because, like, I don't really care about them. I'm not going to play them or anything. It's where that player mentality comes in. And then they dip over time. So there are a number of factors to be aware of, and some of them are very difficult to predict, but we will just want to help you guys make the best decisions possible. I need to start listening to my own advice here as well.
Yeah, right. Well, and two things. So first off, if we were 100% accurate all the time, I'd be rich. Like all these shops, like your locals, they would be rich. Mm-hmm. There's going to be your ups and downs. And finally, not to play devil's advocate with Dan, not devil's advocate, but the seller side. Just to kind of mention for those of you that are selling the cards, keep in mind, I mean, again, you're the one that went to these events, you're the one that paid to go to the event, you're the one that took time off work or vacation. I know a lot of you don't have, maybe not have tons of vacation time. Maybe you had to bribe your boss and you had to pay them or whatever.
No, right? We're not advocating that.
No, we're not advocating that. Like, please don't do this. Don't get fired. But like, again, you're the one that took the time to go to the events and do this. So don't necessarily feel like, okay, wow, yeah, I'm selling these for a premium, that you're feeling bad about it. No, no, no. You're the one that took the time to go to the event and went to the event and do all that. And so, yeah, you want to make up for what you had to pay for the event. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think, yeah, and that's a really great point, and that's a really good way to put it. I think on the flip side, the buyer is someone who is just like when you're selling, you're taking a risk that this is, this could potentially go up. The buyer is taking that same risk. They're just on the other side thinking, you know what, I think this might go up. I'm going to take the gamble and buy it right now instead. And the question ultimately is just who was more. Who had the better assumption of what will happen? Who had the better guess as to what the market's going to be like? It's not really I don't necessarily view that kind of thing as taking advantage of people or anything. I think some people might think that way, but there are certainly unethical ways to do it, I think.
Yeah,
but
right.
As long as you're just being transparent, you're like, here's the price people are buying at. Someone says, okay, I'd like to buy it at that. You go, okay, good deal. Like, we'll, both of you leave with your own assumption of what the future is going to be like, and one of you will be right. In our experience, this is some of our advice that helps you maybe guide your decisions if you haven't had this experience before, and can maybe help you make some decisions that hopefully keep you as the Maindeck listener on that side that is in the green later on, or in the black rather than in the red. So, Mike, do you have any last tips for everyone?
No, I mean, the key thing that I'll tell all of you, just again, do your research. Every game is different. All of you, know who your popular characters are in the game. If it's an anime game,
Waifu tax.
Yep, waifu tax. I mean, again, and then look to see. Are they exclusives? When you see that big bold word and it says exclusive for the event, that's a tall tale sign that this card, like, it's going to be limited. So, and then, yeah, Gen Con, make sure you're checking out the different booths and do your research, because, you're going to have to initially invest a little bit of money to go to Gen Con or, what have you. But the returns, if you know what you're doing, you can come out on the positive. And then go with friends. I mean, don't travel by yourself. Don't do what I did to Dragon Ball Battle Hour. I mean, I wish I could have had a few people come with me.
We just didn't believe you. I'm sorry. I'll believe you next time.
But that's okay. I still had a blast. But yeah, I mean, go with friends. So much fun with friends, and that'll really, really help when it comes to lowering your cost to go to the tournament. And then, online tournaments. That's the other thing. Do online tournaments and look at the participation pricing, especially if it's the new promos coming out. Just enter.
If an online event is early in a season, that's a really great opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, but then you have to make sure that you get your prizes shipped to you in a timely manner. That's not always the case with these online events, and that can be very frustrating.
Research the TO.
Yeah.
Research the tournament organizer.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. That's a great extra piece to add there. Check out who the TO is. Do they have a history of shipping things quickly or slowly? See what other people have said about their previous online events, and use that, because one of the most frustrating things in the world can be playing one of these events and then waiting for your prizes and watching people who go to in-person ones selling things at a premium and watching that price go down and down and down, and you're still twiddling your thumbs waiting for your stuff to arrive. That can be tough.
So frustrating. Oh,
yep.
100%.
All right, well, Mike, this I think was a very interesting episode. I hope people found it helpful or fascinating. I think for some people this will have been very obvious advice to you, and if so, I just hope you enjoyed listening to the chat. But I do know that there are people out there who can use this advice, or perhaps at least just a reminder that, hey, like to myself, maybe I should take this advice a little more seriously and actually listen to it instead of just preaching and not following through with it. So that is going to do it for episode number 30 of the Maindeck podcast. We will be back once again next month with episode 31, chatting with one of our usual co-hosts about something, and it's not planned, so we have no idea, but whatever is interesting and timely, we'll be talking about it next month. So hope you guys enjoyed. That's going to do it for today's Maindeck podcast. We will see you guys in the next one.
See you, everyone.
Thanks for watching another Maindeck video. Maindeck is sponsored by J-Dub Sports Cards and Gaming. Visit jwwcards.com and by our amazing patrons. Get exclusive content and other cool perks on the Maindeck Patreon. And hey, while you're here, I bet you'd like one of these videos. Go ahead, click one. I know you're gonna love it.